I was running late that morning trying to make up for a promise I'd made to my son, Max, that I'd drive him to the bus stop instead of making him walk. We'd barely made it out the door with toast still in hand when I saw it. As I pulled up to the corner, my heart stopped. There was Max, my 12-year-old, his small shoulders hunched, backpack clutched tightly to his chest, standing face to face with a middle-aged woman in a perfectly pressed pantsuit. Her manicured finger jabbed the air just inches from his face. Even from 50 feet away, I could see the fear in my boy's eyes. Never seen. "You here before?" The woman's voice carried across the quiet morning air, sharp and accusatory. "This is a private neighborhood bus stop. I need to see your proof of residence right now, or I'm calling security." A few other parents and kids stood nearby, watching with uneasy silence. No one stepped in. I eased my unmarked police car to the curb, careful to hide the government plates. We'd only been living in Oakwood Hills for 3 weeks, and I'd gone out of my way to keep my job quiet. Being the police chief in a small town like Silverwood meant everyone looked at you differently. And after Max lost his mom 2 years ago, I wanted him to have something close to a normal life. The woman's voice rose another octave as I got out of the car. "Do you understand what trespassing means, young man? I am the HOA president, and I have every right to question suspicious individuals in our community." Max's voice was small and trembling. "I live here. My dad and I just moved in, on Elmwood Drive." The woman, whom I would soon learn, was Brenda Sterling, the infamous head of the Homeowners Association's Community Standards Committee, scoffed. "That's exactly what someone who doesn't belong would say. Elmwood Drive, really? Which house number? Who owned it before? Why haven't I seen your parents at any community meetings?" I approached slowly, my tone calm and deliberate, the way 20 years in law enforcement had taught me to handle people like her. "Excuse me," I said evenly. "Is there a problem here?" Brenda turned toward me, her expression dripping with superiority. Late 40s, an expensive, blonde bob, designer slacks, and a gold HOA president pin glinting on her lapel like a badge of authority. She barely spared me a glance. "I'm handling a situation," she said curtly. "This child claims he lives in our neighborhood, but I've never seen him before, and I know everyone who belongs here. We've had issues with outsiders trying to use our private amenities." Max looked up, relief flooding his face. "Dad?" Brenda blinked, eyes darting from him to me, recalibrating her approach without backing down. "You're his father." "Well, as I was saying, as president of the Homeowners Association, it's my responsibility to ensure the safety of our neighborhood. We have strict protocols about who can use the bus stop. I'll need to see your community ID card." The parents nearby shifted uncomfortably, watching the exchange. One mother gave me an apologetic look. Clearly, this wasn't Brenda's first scene. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "my son and I moved into 478 Elmwood Drive 3 weeks ago, the Gallagher place. We're registered residents, and Max has every right to be here." Brenda folded her arms, red nails tapping impatiently on her handbag. "Everyone knows the bylaws require new residents to check in with the HOA office and receive proper identification before using community facilities. The bus stop is included in those facilities." "I don't make the rules," she said with a smug smile. "I just enforce them." I rested a hand on Max's shoulder. "Go wait in the car for a minute, buddy. The bus will be here soon. I'll handle this." As he hurried off, I turned back to Brenda. This wasn't our first brush with the HOA. In just 3 weeks, I'd already received 3 separate notices. One claiming our mailbox was 2 inches too low, another demanding we repaint our window trim to a more acceptable beige, and a third warning about leaving the recycling bin visible from the street for more than 4 hours after pickup. "Mrs. Sterling, right?" I asked, though I already knew exactly who she was. She'd personally delivered our welcome packet along with a 3-page list of so-called violations requiring immediate correction. She lifted her chin proudly. That's right, Brenda Sterling, HOA president for 7 consecutive terms. Of course she was. Her chest puffed out with pride, chin tilting upward like she was used to winning every argument. Well, Miss Sterling, I began evenly, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Questioning a minor without parental consent crosses several boundaries, both legal and ethical. My son was clearly distressed by the way you approached him. Brenda huffed, her tone dismissive and clipped. I have the full authority of the association board to question anyone on community property. It's for everyone's safety. We've had vandalism incidents and the board voted unanimously to implement stricter security measures. If your son had proper identification, there wouldn't have been a problem. Something in her self-righteous tone made me decide it was time to stop playing the polite neighbor. I reached into my jacket and pulled out my badge, keeping it low enough so the kids couldn't see, but high enough for her to recognize exactly what it was. Chief Arthur Mitchell, I said quietly, Silverwood Police Department. I believe you were just harassing my 12-year-old son while he was waiting for his school bus. That's not only against HOA regulations, Ms. Sterling. It could also be considered intimidation of a minor under state law. The change was instant and almost comical. Her face drained of color. The power she'd worn so proudly moments ago evaporated into panic. Her mouth opened, then closed again, before she finally managed to stammer. Chief, I had no idea you were. This is just a misunderstanding. I was simply doing my duty as HOA president to ensure community safety. If someone had told me who you were, that's the problem, Miss Sterling, I cut in, my tone controlled but firm. You shouldn't need to know that I'm the police. Chief, to treat a child with basic decency and respect. Any child, regardless of who their parent is, deserves better than to be interrogated and accused of trespassing on their way to school. The sound of the approaching school bus rumbled in the distance. I motioned for Max to come back. Brenda was visibly shaken now, trying to recover her composure, but the other parents weren't pretending anymore. They were watching her every move, some with disbelief, others with quiet satisfaction. I'll be filing an official report about this incident, I continued calmly. Not as a resident, but as a law enforcement officer concerned about the harassment of minors in this neighborhood. And I'd like to review the specific HOA bylaw that supposedly grants you authority to interrogate children without a parent present. I imagine your board's legal counsel will be very interested in that policy. A murmur rippled through the small crowd. Then one mother stepped forward hesitantly. She did the same. Thing to my daughter last month, she said. Accused her of bringing a friend from outside the neighborhood and threatened to fine us. We didn't say anything because Brenda runs the violation committee. Another parent nodded. She had my landscaping crew banned from the neighborhood because they parked their truck in my driveway for 10 minutes. Cost me nearly $1,000 to find someone new. Brenda's face turned bright red again, but this time it wasn't authority fueling it. It was humiliation. This is ridiculous, she sputtered. I've devoted 8 years to keeping this community safe and maintaining our property values. You have no idea what would happen if we didn't have proper standards and enforcement. The bus squealed to a stop beside us. I crouched to give Max a quick hug. Have a good day at school, buddy, I said softly. Don't worry about any of this. Once the children had boarded, I straightened and turned back to Brenda, who is now clutching her designer handbag. Like a shield, Sterling, I said firmly, I expect to see you at the police station this afternoon to give a formal statement about your conduct. Specifically, your practice of questioning minors. 3 o'clock should work. Her jaw dropped. You can't seriously think this warrants police involvement. I was just doing my job. Harassment isn't anyone's job, I replied coolly. And targeting children crosses a line that goes far beyond HOA policy. In fact, What you did today could result in charges of harassment, intimidation, and impersonating a security official, each carrying potential fines of up to $5,000 and even jail time in this state. The blood drained from her face for the second time. For once, Brenda Sterling, the self-proclaimed queen of Oakwood Hills, was speechless. The other parents were openly staring now, some even exchanging faint smiles. Clearly, I wasn't the only one she'd bullied. A week later, a community-wide email went out from the HOA board. It announced in careful language that Brenda Sterling had regretfully stepped down from her position as HOA president and committee chair following multiple formal complaints. It also mentioned that she was being fined $2,000 for harassment and required to complete 40 hours of community service. The board issued a formal apology to all residents, particularly families with children, and promised to review every community policy to ensure a more inclusive and respectful environment. The next morning, I saw Brenda hurrying from her white Mercedes to her front door, sunglasses on, head down, pretending not to see the neighbors she used to lecture. I didn't feel satisfaction, just relief. Relief that my son and every other kid in this neighborhood could finally wait for the bus without fear of being treated like a suspect. If you've ever dealt with a toxic HOA, share your story below. Subscribe to HOA Conflicts for more.